Hey everybody, this is Carl back again for the beginning of the Halloween season theme reviews. And I want to start off with Hellblazer Lucifer. And if you watched like the Lucifer TV show that was previously on Fox but then moved to Netflix, you know, that's because Hellblazer is tied to the DC universe. And I know there was this when that uh crap Sandman came out on Netflix, and they got, because you read this Sandman comic, uh they had, they had to cast another person to play, like a person to play, well, I guess in this case a female Lucifer, and a different Mazikeen. I'm like, you know how successful and the massive audience of the Netflix slash Fox Lucifer show has grown, and for some reason, for this short stint, you couldn't cast, Tom Ellis and what is her name, like Leslie Bennett or something like that, who played Mazikeen. uh you could have gotten them for a little while, as much as, like, they love those characters. It's like, come on. And they're so great, and that's how it was perfectly cast. That, forever I will always, when I want to picture the DC Comics version of Lucifer and Maze, those would be the two that should be the only ones. Kind of like with because they kind of confirmed it with like the CW crossover, Crisis of Infinite Earths, when Constantine tried to help, like, the Legends of Tomorrow team with something, with this massive multiversal kind of adventure. They went to the universe where Lucifer from the show's from, and, like, you got to see like Tom Ellis, and it's like, oh my god, yes, confirmed, he's the DC Comics version of Lucifer, and that should always be the case. But I digress on that. But it's just, that's how I envision DC Comics Lucifer Morningstar. He's always be Tom Ellis, even though in the comics Lucifer is blonde. Tom Ellis has raven hair, but doesn't matter. He just got that kind of gravitas. But anyway, I really wanted to, like, well, I couldn't go through, so, because it's like, what, like, 8, 9 seasons of that show. I didn't have time this year to get through all that, and most of the seasons have been like, hit and miss, especially getting towards the latter end. But it is a, overall a pretty decent show. Highly recommend. It's on Netflix. Check it out, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Why, like, this character is amazing. Now, unlike in most iterations of the devil, this version of Lucifer is, as put it this way, like, less of a dick by comparison to any other iteration, because he's not like full-blown evil like typical devil is in Vision. Here, he's definitely like selfish, self-absorbed, but in the same way with like the TV show version, it's that he just want to do his own thing, and it's kind of like he doesn't like pick up on, he learns over time, but it's like he doesn't pick up on like you know, empathy so quickly or read the room as quickly as humans do, but he, seeks out punishing the guilty, more so than uh you know getting justice for the innocent. Like, because he needs to fulfill that, I won't say fulfill that need, but he's just like, he's more concerned with making sure, like, the sinful are punished, if especially if he knows that, like, let's say, like, oh, you not only robbed the bank, which I probably wouldn't give a crap about, it's like, do you, buddy? But if you get in your getaway car, and as you're trying to hightail out of here, you uh hit a teenager along the way, then he'll probably give a little bit more of a shit and make sure that you get punished. Because I guess it just is what he will interpret as, like, deemed like he should be intervening on something that, because it's hard to put it in words, but it's like he will, seek justice, but for selfish reasons. It's not the same way as like Batman or Superman, where they want to make sure that the innocent gets their justice, and the bad guy gets put away. No, it's like, I'm going to make sure that you'll suffer for what you did. Anyway, so if you know about Hellblazer Lucifer, he, just like in a TV show based off the comics, he escapes hell, moves to Los Angeles, and built up a nightclub called X-Lux, Lux in the TV show. And he's like a successful business owner, and people typically go to him to make deals. If and it's not like your typical fashion, like, oh, you gotta give me your soul in order to exchange for me to do this favor for you. No, it's like a trade for a trade. Like, I will come to you for, like, I get you this, like, big football career, then I will come to you, if somebody needs something, like, oh, I know a guy, I'm calling in that favor, help me with this other thing, and we'll call it even. That kind of thing. That's how, in this interpretation, he would do it. That's why I'm saying he's less of a dick in the grand scheme of things in the multiverse of Lucifers. He's like the best of the worst evils. Anyway, on this adventure, like I said, he's like running his club and everything like that. He's always, smoothed out, decked out to the nines, and just want to do his own thing. He's not caring about, like, the wherever God or angels are doing. And in this story, Mazkeen, his right hand demon, is running hell. But then one day, after some previous adventure, Lucifer crash lands back to Earth. Well, in this panel, it seems like he just crash lands, to hell. But he crash lands from a fight that leaves like a wound to the side with some kind of black inkish thing, slowly, like, wounding him. All the while, back in heaven, God is, seemingly dead. Seemingly. Because this other fallen angel named Gabriel, who in this world fell because after the whole situation with the Garden of Eden, he's supposed to be keeping like a watchful eye to make sure that nothing happens to Adam and Eve, which obviously that failed. So he was cast out for shirking his duties. Because, I guess for whatever reason he didn't keep his eye on the ball. So Metatron, who in biblical history is supposed to be like the not a messenger of God, but like the scribe of God that speaks for him, and he brings Gabriel back to heaven because he's been like wallowing in like a rundown warehouse with a bunch of junkies, with one of them named Lauren, who's there's a few humans that pop into this story to become part of this grand scheme of this adventure, and I'll speak on it a little bit more. But Lauren's like is a homosexual young adult, late teens, early 20s probably, and he's able to witness these angels. Well, it's not like they like isn't, because I'm thinking about like Supernatural, the TV show, where angels don't, if they don't want to be seen, they don't want to be seen. But he just show up and he's seeing these angels, one of them being Raphael, who he ends up in like a romantic relationship with down the line through this adventure. He picks one of the feathers from his wings and put it into his hair, which he uses to call upon him through like another at the end of this arc. But you'll see him pop up later. I start bringing it up. Anyway, he's Gabriel's wallowing in the self-pity kind of situation, but he's called back to heaven to try to, like, you want to earn your way back to heaven? Well, I need you to help me find out who did this to God. And you see this big gaping hole in the chair, which leads into some kind of portal beyond into some other ether where God is supposed to be. And it just got in this kind of cocoon state. So they suspect that the only one capable of doing something like this would be Lucifer. So he's called to like take Lucifer out. And you just feel like, oh, he's the adversary, he's got to be guilty because nobody else could easily do this. So Gabriel goes down there to X-Lux and using a fiery sword to try to just like kill him outright. Lucifer, being good at that slick talk, experienced like whoever attacked God, obviously I was the one fighting it, because he shows him his wound, like we gotta go on this investigation because like whoever attacked God also wanted me taken out too, so like I'm not obviously not the culprit. So they go into this little adventure to try to figure out, like, okay, like, because they see this inky substance in his wound is obviously some kind of metal of origin of some sort. So something like this gotta be, originated from hell. So they decide to go to hell to try to, find out where the sword is, and we find it out, help us lead to the culprit. So yeah, which they gotta find Mazikeen to see if she knows anything about this inky substance. Yeah, and this thing like keeps, when Gabriel tries to pull it out, it just flies right back into Lucifer until Lucifer like yanks it, that little thing out, and at least a piece of it and just burns it off, but there's still like substance try to worm his way to his heart to try to kill him. But then there's these little side things that will weave into the overall narrative. But there's a woman, what's her name? Uh, Tina. Uh, yeah, Tina, who is kind of teacher. They got invited to some old high school buddies' house, and because she's back at home in Oklahoma cleaning out her late mother's house, her sister doesn't want to be bothered. It's this very sad story with this Tina person who's, you know, essentially had like a pretty sad life, didn't go exactly the way she wanted to. And while cleaning out this house, somehow, some way, this jar full of like this demon spirit, whose name will be revealed by the end of this, like, you know, the first 5 issues, and it's getting inside of Tina's head. And somehow it ends up in her mother's house, deep inside the recesses of the closet where she found it. And she's keeping it and it's telling her to do all these like bad things, getting inside her head, ultimately trying to let it out. And it convinced Tina to kill this couple because the guy she used to go on a date with before he left her to be with this woman. And it's like, you know, why even like bother? Because I guess Tina's kind of like don't have much self-respect for herself, so she just goes to the house of 2 people that, you know, kind of treated her wrong. Doesn't really have to, but cause still, you know, I guess he doesn't have that many friends. But we'll get to that later. Then, well, now Lucifer and Gabriel are in hell fighting off demon hordes that, you know, most of them align with Mazikeen and see her as the ruler of hell and recognize her rule, while some don't. And Gabriel and Lucifer fight off those who don't. Which, once Mazikeen's forces show up to back them up, they all go to well, yeah, aside from 2 others that doesn't really that ain't really on the Mazikeen side, they putting out a front. But they all go to this dining hall where Lucifer is talking amongst them, trying to like you know, get some answers. But Gabriel is lured away and essentially tortured by 2 aliens. I mean, not aliens. 2 demons. One looks like, you know, like a typical horned demon, only bigger and muscular, while the other one is just like a mosquito fly type thing. And Lucifer shows up to help out while this guy is being submerged in fire. And he slowly but surely is healing from all this. But you know, Lucifer manages to save him and they hightail it out of here. Then speaking of like side stories, we meet this Haitian young lady named Medjin, who's she's one of twins she had like a twin brother, and he got adopted by this lesbian couple, and lived in a nice house with this couple of other foster children too that they adopted. But once you meet up with this family, after a while, you don't see those other siblings ever again for some reason. Thought that was kind of weird. But merging, because the foster system was kind of crap sometimes, they split up the twins. Merging went to this awful, super religious uh, uh, white family that treated her like crap and essentially like a slave, doing all these chores and everything like that, and telling her how to dress because we don't want her thinking that she's some kind of temptress, and we don't want you tempting the males in his house or whatever. It was awful. It was awful as human beings. But she will play an integral role into his overall narrative. So once Lucifer and Gabriel meet up with Mazikeen, she doesn't know anything about this, inky substance or what transpired overall with what happened to God and Lucifer. So she explains to them, like, okay, maybe you need to speak to my mother, the Lilim, who is like the mother of all demons. And they technically Lilith, well, I can't remember if like she's supposed to be dead or she just lives on in the dreaming, because Lucifer and Gabriel goes to the land of dreams where it is ruled by Sandman, Morpheus. But you don't see them here. There are characters from the Sandman comic that pop up, like Cain and Abel, but it's only brief. But they end up going to this little hut area where they meet up with Lilith, who's shacking up with Eve from Garden Eden. And she proceeds to explain about this unique sword that originated a long time ago, I think called the Sword of Azazel, who was this sin eater a long time ago, who these villagers decided to like feed and appease it by putting all their sins in this goat, and they send the goat off for Azazel to feed off of, so it can feed on the sins. But over time, Azazel, it wasn't enough for Azazel, so he sneaks off into the nearby village and proceeds to coerce people into sin. So, having been fed up with trying to appease this creature whose hunger is insatiable at this point, decides to choose, or at least one of the village elders decides to make this plan where you get one of the village girls to go seduce and get impregnated by Azazel. She ends up birthing twins, and the twins seemingly live out a normal childhood until in their like late teens, early 20s possibly, where the more, I forget which one of them was more outgoing and the other was a little bit more reserved. And can't remember which brother, because it's two twin boys. I forget which brother was the one that got killed. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. It's not about them technically. But one of the brothers gets killed by the villagers. His blood is put in this vat and forged into the sword for the other brother. I'm pretty sure it was the more reserved one to wield, to because he will have like the strength of the father in order to kill off Azazel. He technically managed to do that, but Azazel passed off his special gift on to this kid who I don't think knew. He probably had maybe some inkling, but I don't think he fully knew that this kid would probably actually be his. But the son, who at this point now is taking up the mantle of Azazel, already has like a anger towards his village, who slaughtered his brother, went out and just wreaked havoc on the entire village. Until then, one day, when the angels from heaven decides, okay, God want this kid, taken care of, so he was banished into this, or threw into this big rock ravine type mountain area, I guess, and he was essentially buried with that, damned sword. And that was the sword that was used, somehow was found, to attack Lucifer and God, because it's just, everything that's, it went through had some kind of like, mechanism needed, or at least had the power needed to cause some significant damage. Now, all the while on these little door-to-door Jehovah's Witness type of thing, Medjing, along with the two youngest children of the family, goes knocking on the door of I'm guessing it's like the friend's house where Tina is, and she's taking up residence after she killed these two, stabbed them with the knife, thanks to the influence of this demon in the jar. Their decomposing bodies are still in the kitchen. Not sure why, like, the children don't smell something foul. And Medjing, noticing something's off, tries to get these children out of here to safety, but they don't want to listen because they don't see her as a person. They see, they notice, like, eventually those two dead bodies, they're essentially held hostage by Tina. And Tina at one point wigs out, stabs the youngest son, or the youngest boy, and Medjing managed to get the jar away from Tina right as sirens are blaring. I'm not sure how, like, somebody must have called, but I'm not sure what, because it's never specified. Okay, why would the cops be coming? Is because the children been gone for way too long? That's possibly it. Or it's never specified the time that went on, where people might grow concerned about the family might grow concerned about, like, the length of time where the children has been gone, or if somebody's been looking for this dead couple who's probably been gone for way too long, and there's somebody's checking up. But either way, Tina realized, okay, the jig is up, so she slit her own throat. There's a funeral. Family, at least the foster parents, blaming Medjing, and Medjing decides, like, calling her brother up and set up a way to go meet up with him to find to be with her brother and also get out of this, circumstance she in, she ends up getting away. So you won't see that family for, after this point, because they're just awful. Lucifer ends up going to this other mythical place called the House of Windowless Rooms, being run by this Japanese deity, Inuzuka, who technically would be like probably an obscure Superman villain. I looked this up. Her first appearance was, tangling with Superman. At some point she died, and she's running this place. She had, these 3 boys. One of which, because she had like a fling with Lucifer, which ultimately produced a son we'll see later, named Takedo. But 2 of the boys, Lucifer was responsible for their death. One was poisoned, the other, it was some weapon mishap or something like that. But Lucifer was kind of tangentially responsible. They weren't very good people anyway. But Lucifer goes there because it turns out they using one of Lucifer's feathers, because Lucifer originally cut off his own wings when he fell from heaven, but they took a piece of the feather, grew a new pair, and Lucifer decides to use that in order to sew it on to Gabriel, because he's just getting tired of carrying him everywhere. So now Gabriel can just fly. But things are like, diverging into one another, where Lauren's on his way to LA to find his boyfriend Angel, while he bumps into, on one of the Greyhound bus stations, bumps into Medjin, who's on her way to try to meet up with her brother. They share a bond of teen runaways, and she has this jar that is trying to compel her to do bad stuff too, but she made of more stronger stuff than what Tina is, because Tina was a little bit more of had no backbone whatsoever, so more easily manipulated. But then after Gabriel and Lucifer leave hell, and they eventually track down this jar, Lauren breaks one of the feathers, which I guess immediately summons Raphael, who's already been instructed by Metatron, who also explains to him about what happened with God. He is summoned and decides to take matters in his own hands and try to just deal with Lucifer right on the spot. And not knowing what the heck's going on, decides, to let this demon out under the, because the demon did make a deal that, let me out, do whatever you want, I'll do whatever. And of course, he's trying to cause mischief, but he did make a promise, like, hey, because Medjin explained to him, hey, you said you'll do whatever I want, so no killing and none of that crap. I was like, and I love the way the eyes in this blackish inkish cloud just so expressive. It's hilarious, where you're just it's always like this, eyes are just just bulging, but then when you know, the shadow part was like eyelids, and he just goes like, "Yeah, I did it." And it's just very hilarious. But it turns out this demon was the essentially like a it's Azazel, but not like the boy. It's kind of like the essence of what made Azazel do what Azazel did. I guess it's never that part is never really specified, you know, because it seems a little bit too comedic in a way. While from what the brief stuff we got from Azazel Jr. and Senior, they're a little bit more stoic. So there's gotta be, you know, the essence of that power, I guess. Uh and it turns and then Lucifer with quick thinking lifts up, you know, because his wound, because it's kind of like the T-1000, the inkish thing inside his wound darts out of his body, and it, I guess he forces it out, and with such force, it, you know, not rapid, but like in like with the awesome display of force, it shots out of his body into the cloud and causes like it to burst and destroy itself, and kind of pisses off Raphael and Gabriel, because Gabriel wanted to question this thing of like who was responsible for killing God. But Lucifer will later explain what happened. But not before Gabriel takes Medjing closer to the home of her brother so she can finally meet up with him. He decides to hide her out in his house so that way she doesn't have to stay or go back, I should say. But then after going, because they find out through Raphael that this sword was buried in it's not Jerusalem, but Jerusalem-esque area in this desert, and they find like the old bones of Azazel Jr., and the sword should be right next to him, but they find like one of the feathers belonging to Metatron, and think like, oh, Metatron was the one who took this sword to use to hurt God. So very impulsively, despite Lucifer's warnings, Gabriel flew right towards heaven to the Silver City, accused Metatron. Metatron doesn't confess. He kicks Gabriel out of heaven again, and he lands right back on the same spot he flew from. And it was here where Lucifer explains to him who he knows who killed God and wounded him. It was Gabriel. And it turns out that prior to this adventure, Lucifer was in this other realm, essentially. You know, like a spot where it's like outside of the omnipotence of God, where he was fighting with Gabriel, who I guess is never really explained. Like I said, it's probably in like a previous adventure that I didn't read, but fighting this other being that seems to look like a dark version of Lucifer. It turns out to be Gabriel carrying the this Azazel sword. And after losing a fight, getting wounded but losing a fight, because Lucifer explains like, well, I remember slashing at the neck of this person, which you share the same wound, but you don't really see any kind of scar or nothing on his neck. It's not very visible at any time I see like panels of Gabriel. So that seems kind of like uh, an oversight with the illustrator, in my opinion. Oh, and this written by Holly Black. Don't know like who's the artist here, because the art is pretty good. One second here, but he explains like, you know, throughout their adventure, where they seemingly on this investigative mission, all things that Gabriel went through in hell was orchestrated by Lucifer in order to see what Gabriel knows. And this leads them to understand, like, you know, you're healing super fast and you just fell from heaven, which you should be human, all technical by technical means, given the fact that you are a falling angel. You should have no power and therefore shouldn't be healing from stuff that, you know, would have just killed you outright. Artist Lee Garbett. And so you were sent to take me out. However, because of the influence of that sword, feeding off the insecurities that you had with, you know, being banished from heaven, and you secretly blaming God for it, it encouraged you to try to go after him, and God technically didn't see it coming because you were in this other realm. So once you, well, I guess, went back, you caught, you know, God by surprise, I guess, and wounded him, which caused him to revert into some kind of cocoon state. So technically didn't like outright kill him in a traditional sense. He just kind of in this kind of metamorphosis state, which we'll see bear fruit pretty soon. So after that little arc was done, then we meet up with Keto, who is seemingly come across like, oh, this is a normal guy who has like this girlfriend who is a Satanist, and decides like, oh, I want you to meet my folks in this mountain, you know, this little mountain town, who are Satanists as well. And and after meeting with the folks and the community they come from, it turns out that this seemingly mild-mannered kid turns out to be the son of Lucifer, who, and Izunami, and not liking the subterfuge of like, oh, these devil worshippers about to sacrifice me, but they was pulling this massive prank on him. So not only he summoned, because there's this whole story about this church of Satan that they built and then eventually rebuilt after there was this massive fire that burnt down the original place that a woman was caught up in, who thought was OD'd and died, turned out to be not dead. And he summoned the woman's spirit, who explains that one of the members, who was, I guess, one of the leaders, left her to die after giving her some bad drugs. And the guy tried to use, you know, make a pact with a demon in order to resurrect her, but since he wasn't technically dead, there wasn't nothing to resurrect. So he thought, you know, the whole thing was a fluke and it didn't work. But didn't matter, he still made a pact and so it still counts. So the demon that he made a deal with was technically Taquito's uncle. So he summons this guy, decides like, oh, we're gonna take you to hell as to be these two youngsters' slave. And so Taquito and his girlfriend go to hell because he is needed, because the time has come for Taquito to take his rightful place as ruler of hell by birthright. And this is the whole cocoon thing God is in. And this bears into the next adventure. So Mazikeen is, receive a message about some like commencing this duel by combat, this whole combat duel. And so Izanami says like, oh, if we'll forfeit, at any time during the match if you just don't look at Lucifer at any moment. But this is like a subterfuge by Izanami, by like, there's no way she can't help but look at Lucifer in the crowd at some point, because he gets a summons to since he gave up his rule to Mazikeen as previous ruler, he needs to be there. So she does not have to look at him, and they will just ultimately forfeit. But she's not one to be used as some kind of pawn, so she doesn't end up doing it. But Izanami knew she was going to do it anyway. She just, it needed to be done for her plan to work out. Now we go back to Majin, where she met with a friend of hers, Naomi, I think, and is in the same neighborhood as her brother's folks. And is the only time that she had to walk about is when the parents are away at work, because it's gonna be a while before they realize where her brother and the other foster children decide like, okay, things are going down, we gotta tell our mothers about you, especially because there's some stuff going down, they have to move, and they got to come clean at that point. And Naomi has she lives with a single mom, and these two form like a bond, because they actually see like little demon imps and other supernatural stuff that nobody else is seeing, kind of thing. Later, Raphael meets up with Lucifer, who is shaken because he ends up killing Metatron after freaking out when Metatron explains to him about the state of God. And Metatron's become disillusioned by what's going on, and so he comes to Lucifer to come fast, because Michael is dead and Gabriel fell, and he's going through his own stuff, which he ultimately decides he wants to serve Mazikeen. But then he's like, okay, Lucifer, you're the only other person I can probably like talk about this to. And Lucifer decides to, rarely he does this, but like opens up to Gabriel about something he hasn't told like even Mazikeen, the closest other person he considers like a true confidant, where the whole rebellion thing was orchestrated by God in order to him to be in the position he is, until Lucifer kind of took it too far, because he doesn't want to just be moved like a pawn piece, because ultimately God just needed somebody to run hell for those who sin too much or too badly when upon their death. But Lucifer eventually decided to shirk his whole duties, and it's like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not gonna do X, Y, and Z. But it's like, just kind of like take God a bit. It's like, no, you gotta rule hell. I need a Lucifer in order, to bring balance to the universe. But Lucifer ain't have none of that. So it's he's telling all this because like all this stuff was leading up to a certain point. It was all orchestrated by God. He wanted a devil, which is kind of an interesting thing to think about. It's like, because God doesn't do anything without it being some kind of overall grand scheme. Because God, if you really think about it, outside of this whole comic situation, if you think about it, everything, it all falls back to God. Sure, we all have our free will and blah blah blah, and we all have to take our own responsibilities for certain things. But Lucifer is God's son, one of the originals, and with his omnipotence. Well, I remember hearing from this kind of pastor when somebody asked about, like, given the fact that God is omnipotent and and omniscient and everything like that, why didn't he foresee the fact that, hey, your son will rebel against you and do this, that, and the other? You could have like prevented all that from the jump. But they pointed out, like, yeah, at least in the theologian kind of situation, he's like, yeah, God knows all, he sees all kind of thing, but he sees in kind of like in multiple kind of outcomes, and any one of them are legit possibilities. So that's why he's never surprised by any kind of outcome that we do, because it's one of many of infinite possibilities that he just knows. And whatever route where we choose to go to is still our choice, but he'll never be caught off guard. So that's that. So now the angels in heaven and cherubs and everybody that lives in the Silver City are all freaking out, because they all starting to catch on that not only Metatron is found dead, but God is also seemingly dead. But it turns out that little cocoon he's in is hatching, and a more darker God is stepping forth. He's some kind of, I guess because of the sword, it transformed him in a way, and now he's a little bit more of like a cracked mirror version of what God is supposed to be. And all the angels that's still connected to his grace, I guess, are all, at least that hasn't fell, are all like just bewitched and immediately loses their free will and just enticed to do explicitly whatever he wants to, without any kind of thoughts of their own. So the duel commences, and Takio, his girlfriend, I keep blanking on her doggone name. Rosemary, because like they'll help me remember, because the writer chooses to call this girl Rosemary, like Rosemary's Baby, and it helps me remember Rosemary, who is with Izanami and sitting on the balcony looking onto the fight with Lucifer and seeing this fight commence. At one point, uh, uh, Mazikeen looks out on the balcony, sees Lucifer, and then all of a sudden, uh, Tahiko turns into this amorphous blob monster and starts uncontrollably attacking wherever general direction Lucifer is in to try to kill him, because he was, fed a bunch of BS from his mother, who sought vengeance on Lucifer for what he's done to her previous two children. And so in the midst of the destruction, Rosemary died, turns into the ghost lingering in hell. But thanks to Mazikeen, her and Lucifer managed to stop and pin Tahiko to this pillar. And that's when, like, all these bewitched angels show up. Most demons are killed, others are also bewitched. But thanks to Lucifer, Maze was never bewitched. And because Gabriel is technically fallen, he managed to break out of his trance. So Raphael and a bunch of other angels who have not fallen are all bewitched, and they all go to heaven to make the Silver City stronger and prepare for this massive undertaking by this dark god, who's now this kind of black impish creature who is essentially going back to the Old Testament ways of fire and floods, wiping out the entire world to start over, and also not only start over, but eradicating free will altogether, just starting from scratch. So Tahiko is led by Rosemary to take on like the throne, because that's what he sought after. And she promised, like, hey, I'm your ride or die, I love you, you wanted this throne, I'm making sure my man's gonna get it. So I'm gonna lead you up there, take your throne, I'm gonna make sure you get it. I mean, and like, say what you will by Satanist and her being a Satanist and everything like that, it's like, that's like a true ride or die chick, man. Even upon death, because even she pointed out, he mentions, like, you still riding with me after, like, I accidentally killed you? And she was like, yeah, I'm not a fan of that part, but, like, hey, like, I love you, I'm with you, and I promised I was gonna help you get you on the throne, and I'm still gonna do that for you because I love you. And I was like, that's the kind of chick every guy wants in his life, that through thick and thin kind of situation, man. That's the truest form of one of the truest form of thick and thin type of chicks I ever seen in my life. Like, gotta give credit where credit's due. But now Lucifer, Mazikeen, and Gabriel have to find out how to stop God's plan, or this dark God's plan. So yeah, he's just like, it's just terror incarnate. Can you imagine the level of fear? Because he essentially can do whatever he wants, but don't know why he just can't, given the fact that the level, he's still technically God, like a crack mirror version of God, but he's still technically God. And at this point, it is God unchecked. Well, I would say not unchecked, but it's just like God without any acknowledgement of what limitations he should have. But this is like God, where it's like, hey, I'm God. What of it? So these three go to this other world where technically, as some other adventure, Lucifer created his own universe, which he decides to like leave because he had like a significant amount of power, but he gave all that up because he didn't want to be his father. Even though from time to time people point out there are certain things he does that's not too dissimilar to what God does, but he gave the responsibility to this girl, I forgot her name, but it turns out to be Saint Michael's daughter, and she essentially is God of this world that Lucifer created. But she, at least, he put the seeds in place, but she kind of took care of everything else. But she kind of peed with him because the fact that he never gave her any kind of instructions on what she do, how to govern things. She's having to essentially, you know, sink or swim kind of situation. And she got to go through a fair bit of like trial and error with only, I guess, acknowledgement and not being like the God and just doing things like in a different kind of way than what he did. It's kind of like the same way we look at like Peter Parker, Spider-Man, and how he started out his superhero career. There's a lot of certain mistakes and trials and errors he had to go through, but with thanks to his guidance with Miles Morales, Miles doesn't necessarily fall for any of the same shenanigans that Peter did because he has the benefit of a mentor. And I guess you can think of it that way, I guess. But Lucifer didn't bother to mentor her. So she ends up giving back, giving him like his power back again. So he can, put like a significant fight that's coming up. Then Dark God recreated Michael, at least his interpretation what his new Michael should be, and used him to summon Tahiko to be his, because he has plans of making Tahiko his version of Lucifer, a more controllable Lucifer, this time around. So Michael carries him to the Silver City to help mount the forces against Lucifer and everybody else on the planet Earth. While on planet Earth, not only the weather is going crazy, but demons are roaming. There's a few demons roaming the Earth and attacking civilians. Things are like going wild. And Medjin meets back up with Lauren. They meet up with Naomi and her mom, and they go back to their home where it's supposed to be some kind of safe house, where they bump into Lucifer, who mounted up his own special forces of people with some bit of magic in their own right. And it turns out that Naomi, I guess, it's never really specified, is technically Lucifer's daughter, because the mom, who doesn't like Lucifer at all, seemingly, had like a moment with him, birthed Naomi, and utilizing this coin that's given to by Michael's daughter, that it gave back to Lucifer, who gave it to her. And Medjin, who sees Naomi as one of her closest friends, tries to help, but then they share this kind of massive power. It's kind of like twin daughters or something like that. And they can be able to like see into the futures and has some level of psychic abilities, I guess. And these two girls, Lucifer, Maze, and Gabriel, all mount a small group try to go and take on the Silver City. Now, Maze and Gabriel are fighting all these angels and demons off. The two girls utilizing their power to help them maneuver around fatal blows, so they can put up like a really good fight against this small army. While Lucifer goes toe to toe with uh, this dark version of his father, and he, is telling Lucifer about, I was starting over, is, all the stuff that came forward. We gotta, take all that stuff out. And I also got a piece of you too. And I love this moment because it's kind of funny, where Lucifer is like, okay, tell a joke. And it was like, what? Yeah, if you got part of me in you, then you should, if you got a part of the devil in you, you should be cheeky. Tell me a joke. And it's like, the dark guy had to correct him, like, no, I ain't got the bad parts of you, like all the no nonsense. I ain't got the nonsense part. I got, like the essential stuff. So these two end up fighting, and Lucifer points out to him that Michael's daughter, who essentially is God too, will go toe to toe with you if you don't cool it with whatever plagues or whatever you got cooking up. And so technically the fight is put on pause, a temporary truce for now, knowing that he ain't up to full strength to actually take on, even though she's new at it, she's still like a strong force that can't be reckoned with right now. So a temporary truth is laid out, but the girl is not happy. She is like, now he thinks I'm threatening him. So what do you think is going to happen after he's done with this place? He's going to come looking for me. Thanks a lot. But you see, like, Lucifer is, he doesn't do anything without, like, he got his own machinations. He's he's saving the world, but it's not that he doesn't acknowledge the ramifications of that will cause between the relationships he's and bridges he built with certain people. And it's just like, he has no problem. He probably doesn't necessarily think twice about it, given the overall big picture of it all. I was like, well, I might burn a bridge or two with you right now, but given the fact that what this guy will do, it's like, it's a price I'm willing to pay. I don't care. Then after this whole brief, Christmas theme type of story, which doesn't really mean much, we meet up with this, I don't know, discount version of John Constantine with this woman named Umbrella Crane, who Lucifer asked to assist in finding Gabriel's heart, because after Gabriel fell for the first time, his heart, I guess, and essentially grace with his like angelic powers is taken as well, and and he needs to look for that because it's a part of his overall plan into taking down this dark god. So he has Crane to go and search for it, and of course she's doing it for, like, getting paid. So that's going on. Rosemary is just sitting on the throne waiting for her boyfriend to come back, while Maze shows up and they end up forming a plan in order to take down Tahiko, or at least though his mom. And it turns out to be like uh, uh, she played as like Rosemary's taking on the role as a double agent. So she ends up pretending to kill Mazikeen, which wins the trust of Izanami. While Izanami and the big demon guy and that fly guy try to mount up they try to regroup in order to take back the throne, since Maze is not on it, or at the very least they can easily take her out. And Crane is given this small box that she should not open, that's given to her by Lucifer in order to track down this doctor who would know what happened to this heart. She gives him this box, and the box, whoever opens it, seemingly possesses whatever your heart's desire, and he sought out immortality. And he drinks this little vial that turns him into this small blob thing that I guess is like a real life amoeba type of thing. Not amoeba, but this jelly-like thing that always resurrects or always reforms, whatever. It doesn't technically die, so technically it will be immortal. And but Frank ends up still getting the information she needs from this guy, and turns out this other demon creature has the heart that he bought off from this doctor. And Lucifer manages to take out of this hiding place this giant sword. It's supposed to, that I guess used to belong to Gabriel, that he used to protect the Garden of Eden. And so Lucifer is using it in order to fight off the potential threat that they will be facing. It actually can cut through dimensions and stuff, so it's very powerful sword. And so Crane manages to get it turns out this demon is using this grounded up angel heart to use as like cocaine and snorting it up, which after Crane gets it, she actually tries to, because she got her own little substance abuse problem in a way. I wouldn't say abuse problem, but just like she indulges herself a little bit, too easily. Got no self-control. Well, I wouldn't say she got no self-control, but it's just like she's, she knows that she shouldn't be doing it. She said to herself, but she's like, I'm gonna get high for this, and it's not, it should not be that bad. But she ends up, quickly ODing, and one of Lauren's friends who's looking for him travels to LA to try to find him. She meets up with the other crew, but she ends up finding Crane which she used one of the numbers she has to call Lucifer in order to get help, and thanks to her, getting Crane to the hospital, she managed to survive. But she kind of mad at Lucifer for not telling her, like, knowing that how easily messed up she is, like warn her about that kind of stuff. And it's like Lucifer points out, like, and here's the thing, and they mention this in the show too. Lucifer technically does not lie. I say technically because he omits, he skirts around it, but you know, he doesn't flat out lie. It's just people choose not to believe in what he says. The people tend to believe what they want to believe, and they are just deem it as a lie because it's like the truth is too real, I guess. And he doesn't make people do what they, because like he is a full believer of free will. It's like he can present the options to you. He can he may like push you in those positions, but the ultimate choice is yours. He can't make anybody do anything they don't want to. So he didn't put those stuff in your nose. You chose to do it. But that's just like his logic, you know, that kind of thing. Which it's hard to say that he's not wrong. It's just still messed up. So, and then when they run into the girl, she was on this bus with this talking baby named Paul, who leads them to this shaman lady who is technically his sister. And it's never explained why this baby can talk and knows, because it's like, oh, I'm one of those new souls. They don't pay attention to us up there, so we are hip to all the gossip that's going on. So they end up being led to Lucifer, who gets all the information about what's going on behind the scenes, which is like this dark god. After tangling with Lucifer, and he got hurt by him getting touched by Lucifer, which leads Lucifer to understand like, oh, fallen angels is kind of like his weakness, because they're not, I guess, pure anymore. So that's why he needs like Gabriel's heart in order, because it's like very concentrated fallen angel essence, essentially. That's why he sought that out. So the whole plan goes into motion in hell, with Rosemary seemingly killing Mads King, but turns out, not gonna bury the lead here, turns out to be like a demon shapeshifter, in order to, because Lucifer sees this after later on, knowing it's not really Mads King, but he figured like, yeah, this is easily not Mads King, but this won't transpire without Mads King say so, so she must be coming up with something, so I'm just gonna play along. But everybody else buys the fact that, oh, Mads King is dead, and Izanami is responsible. So they all meeting up together, getting low down about what's going on. Then Tahiko, Fake Michael, and another angel come crashing into Lux, trying to take on Lucifer to end him once and for all. Because he's the only one they actually see as like a significant threat to Dark God's rule. Crane ends up showing up and backing Lucifer up and taking out these two other like Fake Michael and his other angel, and he managed to, you know, to subdue Tahiko. And I love this part also made me freaking laugh, where it's like Crane and that Azazel cloud thing is the two parts that really made me laugh. And also with that whole line with Lucifer telling Dark God to like, okay, tell me a joke. It's just out of nowhere kind of hilarity. And here it's like, you know, Crane points out like, look, like I nearly died because of you. Can't get a this is my first time taking down an angel. Let me get a selfie. Lucifer is like, this angel's my son. Let me get a selfie with your son. Make it quick. And she takes a selfie with this half unconscious kid. It was so freaking funny. It made me freaking laugh. It was honestly, this will be my favorite moment out of the entire adventure, because this part really got me. So Lucifer goes down to hell with Tahiko, try to find Maze, sees the body, acts, really upset, and decides to take, he wants to take out he puts up his whole performance. Like, he goes to the house of windowless rooms, put up this whole anger, chucks the son onto the doorstep. It's like, I will murder my own kid. Don't think I will not, after what you did to Maze. But then Gabriel shows up, telling him about this whole situation, back on Earth. And turns out, like, oh, Lux is being foreclosed on. And here's one of my issues. Like, I think it's like one of my issues with this overall story. And given that it's 19 issues, I guess it's understandable, but it's too many individuals that you're following throughout this entire adventure. And I think they should just trim the fat, starting with this demon and his other business tycoons trying to take over Lux. And it's like, why is this here? It's like you're adding too much, and it doesn't really serve the overall narrative. Now, I give leeway with, Magine and this whole thing with his jar and Demon and Tina, because all that rolls into the overall narrative that weaves Magine and Naomi, because they have like a bigger part to play in this overall narrative. But this demon thing and foreclosing on X-Lux, like, oh my god, it's like, what are you trying to add some added drama, whereas there's enough drama throughout what was going on with this dark god and Izanami. That's enough. I think that's have the enough stakes that you need for what's happening. I didn't like that. I think and you already got enough characters as it is, but I give it a little bit grace, given the fact that they fall into like the bigger story. These two don't care, didn't need it. It could have been like a couple of issues shorter than it is right now, but they were quickly dealt with, so it doesn't really matter. But Lucifer manages to get the urn full of Gabriel's heart and takes the fight to Dark God, tosses the dust of this angel heart all over Dark God, crippling him, and then taking a moment to get his sword and chopping him up into a bunch of pieces, sending his, piece of his essence through multiple different like dimensions. And it's like, isn't that like a problematic? Because like, given how corrupted he is, each piece could do some kind of small but still damage into different dimensions where you're sending him. Sure, he deals with them, but it seems like, problematic. But I guess you probably might don't think too hard on that part, but just gotta get rid of him. But I wish it was kind of a line or two about that. It's like, don't worry, well, the fact that I say that, but it's like, no, Lucifer wouldn't know where those pieces ending up to. But the writer could have been like, I choose to, send wherever I'm cutting into whatever dimension I want, and it could be a line where it's like, oh, okay, I'm cutting you and sending pieces of you into barren wasteland dimensions, so that way your influence won't hurt anything, anymore. That would have helped immensely, in my opinion. So now that Izanami and Hiko is dealt with, they're essentially stuck in this house of windows room, never to, essentially their own little luxury prison. They cannot leave. They're essentially locked in there and never to be escaped, where this also secures Maze's position as ruler of hell. Not sure what's going to happen with Rosemary, given the fact that she still loves Tahiko, but she just do not like his mother. But it's like, yeah, I'm not sure, like, you know, what's going on with the ghosts at this point. But upon the death of this dark god, all the spell and enchantments on all these angels and demons is broken. Raphael runs back to Earth and embraces Lauren again, who's been like worried about Raphael, wants to reconnect with him, he loves him, and they're reunited. Then after this whole hullabaloo, all the major players are in this run room in Xlux, and now there's this big question. Now there's no god running things. We need a new god. And Lucifer knows he cannot choose. Only a human should be able to choose, and it's down to one of I guess 5 people. And one of Lucifer's employees, he grabs him and states like, well, a human needs to be able to choose his own god. So I'm gonna leave it to him. I'm gonna leave the room. I do not want to know anything. And it's another funny moment where it's like he tells him like, pick a number between 1 and 5 or 1 and 10 or something, you know, 1 or 5 or something like that. And the guy says like 4. Okay, I need you to choose again, but don't tell me. He does not want to, because he leaves. He doesn't want to be accused of influencing anything. So he needs, you know, him to be the one to choose, and whoever, because no one wants to, you know, immediately take up, you know, doesn't want to choose to be the guy. It's a lot of responsibility. If you ever watched Bruce Almighty, one of my earliest movie reviews for this channel, I point out how like you think it's all fun as a kid. You think it's all fun and games being God, and you do all whatever you want to do, but it's like super responsibility on top of all that stuff. And if you see from Michael's daughter, who is running things in her own dimension, that's been bestowed upon her by Lucifer, it's challenging, and she's running things like as good as she, you know, and she's like, you know, trying to make it, and it's a lot of work, and nobody's want to just raise their hand and is like, I don't freaking want it. Nobody wants it, but like they're leaving it up to this one guy who has no stakes in the game, and it's like, okay. And I'm glad it's left unknown who this guy ended up choosing. You just hear word boxes coming out of the building, and so personally, I think it's either Crane or Meijin. Personally, it's one of those two, in my personal opinion. But if you read this story, who do you think this guy would have chosen? Because it's got to be one of those two. And I'm kind of leaning towards Meijin, but given the fact that what she's gone through and how strong-willed she is, and a sense of justice and stuff that she has shown, it seems like the one that might have been chosen. But at the same time, that might be too easy. So the story ends with that adventure done. And that is also the end of this first Halloween themed comic book review. The next review next week is going to be all Marvel Blade. There's going to be a hell of a lot of vampire-esque stuff I'm reviewing this month. I'm going to try to get as much out, you know, as I can, because since I wrapped up MK1 story mode, the next video game walkthrough will be Spider-Man 2, luckily. And so here and there, I might play some multiplayer stuff here and there. But as far as major walkthroughs, it's going to be a couple of weeks. So I won't be bogged down by too much video games to concern myself with. I can look forward to, like, put out as much Halloween themed content as I can this month. So next week it's gonna be a lot of the reviewing Blade movies, reviewing some Blade a Blade comic adventure, and I also will be covering the Castlevania Netflix show. Now I know, even though the first 2 seasons of Castlevania has been 4 episodes each, but then the last 2 is 10 episodes each. I'm going to have to do like because the new one just started. I haven't watched that yet. I'm going to wait until I, watched and reviewed. I'm going to wait until I watch all the first 4 seasons of Castlevania, and I'll title that as the what's his name? Victor Belmont? Not Victor. Forgot which Belmont, but the story is talking about. This is one of my favorite Belmonts, because it's like played off Symphony of the Night kind of stuff. But I'm going to title that like that particular Belmont saga, so that way it's all 4 seasons roll into one go. Then I'll do like a double feature kind of thing, and then make a separate video talking about this other season, the newer season of his son or grandson, one of the two. I'm pretty sure it's his son, and his adventure in the new season. Because the Castlevania shows is phenomenal. But yeah, those will be coming up. There'll be a lot of vampire stuff going on. But look forward to that. And speaking of looking forward to, the next review that I'm going to be covering in just a couple of minutes will be the Wednesday Netflix show. There'll be a lot of Netflix stuff going on, so gear up. But anyway, leave a comment below. Let me know what you think of Hellblazer comic, if you read a lot of Hellblazer stuff, because this technically be my first Hellblazer story, but it's still technically DC. At some point in the future, I will review Constantine. May not be during Halloween, but I do want to cover like Constantine and Zatanna, because I think those two is like I might try to get it done this month to see if I can have the time, because I really want to cover like a Zatanna story, but she doesn't have that many like good like long running kind of things. But I gotta look it up, because like I love Zatanna. She is so much fun. I got a huge crush on her. It's just the fishnet stockings. I don't know. Those are probably the most ingenious inventions that always make girls look good in. I don't understand. It's just like I love a girl with fishnet stockings. Almost always. I wouldn't say always make a girl look good. Never a girl can rock certain things, but 9 times out of 10, fishnet stockings make just ladies look so hot. But Zatanna really kicked that off. I don't want to say kicked it off, but like really popularized it. But anyway, let me know which is like your favorite Hellblazer kind of story. What you think of Lucifer as like the DC's devil? Do you wish you want him interacting more so with DC characters like Green Lantern or Superman and blah blah blah? Because the only other DC character he primarily interacts with will be John Constantine. I never seen him interact with any other DC character. It would have been fun to see him like interact with somebody like Batman or Superman. But anyway, I will see you guys in a few minutes. Take care. Oh, and by the way, follow me on links in the description below. Like and subscribe, share this with your friends, and let me know what you think. Now, I will see y'all later.